Imagine moving into your dream home, a place you've worked for years to achieve. Sheree had spent countless late nights, weekend shifts, and long hours scrimping and saving, all to make this dream a reality. Finally, she had the keys in her hand, and she stepped into the home she had envisioned for so long. The street was quiet, lined with mature trees whose leaves danced in the wind. Birds chirped in the morning sun. Children's laughter echoed faintly from nearby yards. Everything seemed perfect, almost like a scene from a movie. But that peace didn't last. Choe Karen was waiting, though Sheree didn't know it yet. Karen carried authority like a weapon, walking the streets with a clipboard, heels clicking sharply against the sidewalks, eyes narrowed in a permanent scowl. To Karen, rules weren't guidelines, they were tools of control. Minor infractions were magnified and small mistakes were treated like crimes. At first, Karen's complaints seemed trivial. The mailbox was slightly crooked. The welcome mat didn't meet the HOA's specifications. Sheree smiled politely and tried to comply, thinking this would pass quickly. But she was wrong. It escalated. Every corner of her property was scrutinized. A bush that was just slightly taller than allowed. Seasonal flowers planted in a perfectly reasonable arrangement. Even the shade of her door paint was questioned. Every knock at her door sent a shiver down her spine. And then came the day Karen crossed the ultimate line. She told Sheree she had to leave her home. Sheree froze. Her hands shook. She had worked so hard, sacrificed so much. Her dream home was supposed to be a sanctuary, and now someone was trying to take that away. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay calm. Losing her composure could give Karen the upper hand. I legally own this home, Sheree said, her voice steady despite the racing of her heart. Karen's eyes narrowed further. Rules are rules, she said sharply. You're out of compliance. You'll need to leave. Sheree realized that this wasn't a matter of minor details. Karen's behavior was deliberate, a pattern of harassment designed to intimidate residents. She needed a plan. She began meticulously documenting everything, photographs of her property, video recordings of Karen's visits, and copies of every email or written communication. Each piece of evidence became a shield against Karen's intimidation. She also knew she couldn't face this alone. Cautiously, she spoke to neighbors. She expected hesitation or disbelief, but almost everyone had a story. Stories of fines for trivial matters, warnings for things that had always been acceptable, and years of silent fear. I've been afraid to say anything for years, one neighbor admitted quietly. Karen fined me for a mailbox that was perfectly aligned. I didn't even fight it. She came to my yard last summer, another said. Completely unreasonable complaints about the color of my shutters. I just stayed quiet, hoping she'd leave. Sheree realized Karen's behavior wasn't random. It was systematic. Karen had been using her authority to intimidate and control for years. But now, with the support of the neighbors, Sheree saw a path forward. Together, they began compiling evidence. Photos, receipts, emails, videos, and written statements from anyone who had been harassed or fined unfairly. They formed a coalition, united by the goal of fairness, and slowly, the fear that had kept them silent began to lift. Sheree also sought legal guidance. The lawyer she consulted explained the situation. Clearly, Karen has no legal authority to force you out of your home. Document everything, every visit, every threat, every unreasonable request. It will protect you and make it impossible for the board to ignore a pattern of harassment. Sheree followed this advice meticulously. Every interaction was cataloged. She started noticing Karen's patterns. She would appear unannounced, demand immediate compliance, and always look for ways to make residents doubt themselves. Anticipating these moves helped Sheree stay one step ahead. Weeks passed, and Karen's visits became more aggressive. Multiple times a week, she inspected fences, yards, doors, and even decorations, searching for the slightest infraction. Sheree remained calm, documenting every encounter. The stress was immense, but she refused to be intimidated. Sheree also strategized with neighbors, organizing meetings to discuss their shared experiences. These sessions were cathartic, turning frustration into action. They practiced what they would say at the HOA meeting, rehearsed presenting evidence, and supported each other emotionally. Finally, the day of the HOA meeting arrived. Sheree felt a mixture of nerves and determination. This was more than just about her home. It was about standing up to years of intimidation and reclaiming the community. Residents filled the room, many who had stayed silent for years now ready to speak. Karen arrived, confident and smirking, clipboard in hand. "I expect order," she said, clearly expecting compliance and fear. But this time she was met with a united front. Evidence, photographs, emails, and detailed records lay ready. Sheree stepped forward. "I am here to present evidence of repeated harassment and overreach by Karen," Sheree began, her voice firm and steady. "These records show a consistent pattern of intimidation, unreasonable fines and threats. This is not just my story, it is the story of many residents in this neighborhood." Neighbors shared their experiences. "Karen fined me for painting my front door a slightly different shade than approved," one said. "I had followed every other rule, yet I was threatened. I received threats for planting seasonal flowers in my yard," another added. "It felt like she wanted to control every detail of our lives." The room grew tense. Karen tried to interrupt, but every argument was countered with documented proof. Photos, videos, and statements left no room for her claims. "These are minor issues," Karen exclaimed. "I was just enforcing the rules." Sheree remained calm. "Rules exist to protect a community, not intimidate it. Your repeated harassment has crossed the line. The board needs to act." The HOA board reviewed the evidence. Karen's long history of overreach and intimidation was clear. After a tense deliberation, the board made their decision. Effective immediately, Karen is removed from her position of authority within the HOA. Any future complaints she submits will be dismissed unless properly substantiated. Harassment and abuse of power will not be tolerated. Relief swept the room. Neighbors exchanged quiet applause, smiles, and glances of understanding. Karen's confidence crumbled. Sheree had defended her home and restored fairness to the community. In the following weeks, life returned to normal. Tension and fear lifted. Neighbors who had stayed silent began speaking freely, gardening together, hosting gatherings, and rebuilding community bonds. Sheree reflected on the ordeal. It had been exhausting, stressful, and at times terrifying, but she had learned a critical lesson. Standing up for your rights doesn't always mean confrontation. Sometimes it means preparation, strategy, and persistence. It means building support, documenting everything, and showing the truth to those with authority. Her home was safe. Her neighbors were united. And Karen? She no longer had the power to control or intimidate anyone. Sheree had won, not through anger or retaliation, but through calm, courage, and careful planning. As she walked down the quiet, tree-lined street, watching children play and neighbors tending their gardens, Sheree felt peace. Her home wasn't just a sanctuary, it was a symbol of courage, fairness, and community. If this happened to me, Sheree thought, I would do the same. Stand firm, stay calm, gather evidence, and know you are not alone. Her victory wasn't just for herself, it was for everyone who had been silenced, intimidated, or controlled. And in that moment, Sheree knew that courage and patience could change more than a single home. It could change an entire neighborhood.